What's up, AfterBuzzers? We are here with the Young Pope After Show. We're going to break down Season 1, Episode 2 and 3. And we have an intro tonight, so we're so excited. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Yes. I mean, they really went all rock star on these episodes.
Dude,
they were not playing around.
He is a badass.
Walking in slow motion.
Did you like the wink? I was like, oh shit.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
that's my boy right there. Like,
gosh.
he's got me.
He totally jumps in with both feet on this character.
I know. Yes. Well, welcome back, everybody. We are super excited to be here to break down The Young Pope, Episode 2 and 3, and we finally have an intro, which I love HBO intros. Anybody that knows me knows that, so I'm super excited to talk about it. But before we do that, I want to introduce myself. I'm Jessie Zahner, and you can find me on all social media at Athletic, and tell everybody where they can find you guys.
Hey guys, I'm Joelle Monique. You can find me all over the internet at Joelle Monique and every week at blackgirlnerds.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Gragg. You can find me, follow me on IG at @alg_Jamaica House Film, and my Twitter at SoundClashCine.
And we're live in the chat now, so if you guys are joining us on
Yes,
YouTube,
join us
you can comment there.
live.
Always feel free to leave 5 stars in our iTunes and say, hey, what's up? When you say good things about us, people know about us. It helps people find us, and hopefully it gives you guys more people to talk to you in the live chat. So,
Yes, exactly. So chat with us, guys. We want to hear what you think of Episode 2 and 3, because there's so much that happens. So let's first get into it. Let's just go into the intro.
Yes.
Because I'm so
You're
excited
very
about the
excited
intro.
about this intro.
Yes, because HBO does such good intros. I
This is
watch
true.
a lot of HBO shows, so I used to love The Big Love. Have you ever watched
Yes,
Big
it's
Love?
a very
I
classic
used to
intro.
love that intro, and then they changed it later in the year
I
or
know
later in
nothing
the
about that
season.
intro.
And then Boardwalk Empire's intro was so.
I liked Boardwalk Empire because it had a nice. Okay, so I liked it, but I didn't love it because it didn't seem to jive and meld too well with the show.
Yes.
It's so much different. Like the images were right, the music
Yes.
was like, this is not what this show is about.
No,
this is
but
weird.
I love it.
But I like. I think True Blood is their best intro to a show. It's just as far as like bringing in a show. But this one was a whole lot of fun, and I really feel like I got to learn which art pieces are behind him, because I feel like
Yes.
maybe we're getting a second story in the background. So
I
if somebody's
know.
an art major and knows all these things and just wants to help me not do so much research,
So I
feel free to drop that in the
found all
DMs.
the. No, I
You
found.
did it already?
Yes.
You were really obsessed with this intro.
No, I was obsessed with the intro, so I went and I looked up all of the paintings, and I'm like, we need a total different after show to break down the intro. So just saying, what did you guys think?
Intro's bananas. I just love it. It almost feels like some cool retro MTV rock star video,
Yes.
walking in slow motion. I just need to see girls dancing, as in money flying. That would have been all I was missing.
It's so true, and I think we find out a little bit more about the Pope this episode, and kind of some of the stuff that happens is right along the same path as that intro is. So let's break down Episode 2.
Okay.
So we get right into it with Sophia, the marketing lady.
Who I adore, by the way.
I love her too.
Her energy, that actress is just popping off the screen. She's got a crazy good energy. But then it's such an interesting character to bring in at this point. Somebody who is affiliated with the church, but isn't consumed. Her whole life doesn't seem to be about it. And also somebody who is highly educated and maybe isn't so concerned about the politics and more about the image.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, she brings out a lot of surprises for Pope Pius XIII, because when she was placating his ego, I was like, oh, girl can play. She knows the
You're
rules.
so good looking. And then
Yes.
he just bats her down
And then he
everybody
just,
goes to Harvard is lame.
Yeah.
Nope. You guys are stuck in the past. I can't even be seen because I'm a rock star. And I was like, this guy's got a lot of balls. A lot of cojones being like, this Pope confuses me.
He's so confusing to me too. So what did you think of his rock star image? He was saying that all these great artists, authors, who else did he name?
Musicians and
performers.
performers, yeah.
They were all, the one thing that tied them all together was that they
They
Didn't
couldn't
show
be
their
seen,
names.
right?
they're invisible.
Who else did he name besides Daft Punk?
J.D. Salinger, the
Kubrick,
author.
the director.
Yes.
I wasn't sure who the best Italian vocalist was, but they gave her a shout out.
Yeah.
And Banksy.
Yeah, exactly. I like that one. And a shout out actually to the intro. Right after the intro sequence, the new one, they go right into this fever dream though. This whole sex thing. And I think that's young Esther, who we meet later on.
Yes.
And she has like this interesting exchange. Okay, well, sex is only for procreation, but I love you. And the guy responds to her like, but that isn't enough. And I'm thinking like, wow, is that a stand-in for the young Pope who we're about to see? Just interesting.
Yeah. So we're finding out, like, I didn't know what to think. He said that he has, like, planned his whole life to be an invisible Pope because they want his face on, like, plates, and he's basically says, I'm nobody, which was interesting to me because all this time I thought he was a narcissist. But then at the same time, he's saying, well, I'm going to be the great Pope, just like all these great
Across these 2 episodes,
artists.
we see a lot of him making these giant proclamations that seem to be like stream of conscious thoughts that I think a lot of times we equate with truth, but in his case might be more of a fever dream seems the right word for it, of just spouting off things like I got myself here and I don't need God and yes, I am righteous. And then like immediately after, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, you get him on his knees being like, if I've offended you, forgive me.
Yeah, he's nuts.
Like,
He's beyond neurotic.
I don't know if it's even neurotic or that he's nuts. I really feel like this is a guy doing battle with himself. Like, I really strongly feel like he's like, he does have faith because the only people that loved him have faith. And I think that that's what he's trying to reconcile. Is like, he's looking for his parents. God is supposed to be your father. Now he's supposed to be a father. And how do you lead your sheep if you've never been led yourself?
Right.
And I think that we get to see a lot more of that. And he feels so much more human in these 2 episodes than he did in the pilot. And I'm excited about that.
Right. No, I totally agree. There's a lot going back and forth with him. So, you know, he's an invisible Pope. He doesn't want any pictures taken of him. And when he does his first address, he wants it to be black. He doesn't want anybody to see his face.
How cool, though. Like, if his speech hadn't been so much BS, like, it would have been a really impactful moment, I feel like. I was so mad he bombed that. I was like, this is a great visual.
Because the way it was shot with backlight and full silhouette, I mean, that's the way Banksy is shot in his documentary. So I think there's a lot more to that than people give it credit for. That whole mystique actually upping the public's interest.
Well, particularly in today's society when, again, we're just a click away from our favorite people. Like, it's so easy to
Too
reach
accessible.
out to... Yeah, exactly. And so in that era, to say, there will be zero access to me. Like, it's a grand statement. And it's cool that they show that could be a vain movement, too. Like, it's something you would think of, like, as somebody who is pious and somebody who's like, I don't want all the attention on me, but they flipped the script on that, and that was a lot of fun to watch.
Right. So let's talk about his first address, because we see through this episode, you know, they're struggling with writing the address. Voyello writes it for him. Sister Mary thinks it's very good.
What did you think of Voyello's written speech?
I was actually shocked that he wrote it, because why were you not surprised?
No, I was shocked too, because
it sounded like the Pope.
Well, he took it. To me, it's what a good second does. It's like, let me take your ideas, and I'll just organize them for you in a way that will touch the people. And I think, had performed correctly, that could have been a very impactful speech.
But his ego would not allow him to say
I know.
anything.
No, I totally agree. Like, at first, I was surprised when they put the book down and it said his name on it, because I was like, this is exactly what I would expect of Pope Pius to say. But like you said, his ego's not going to let that happen. He says it's weak, and he's not going to go with it.
Well, and I have to question how much ego it is and how much playing the game. Like, we hear a lot about this is the game, and there are all these games being played. And I think for a guy like Voyello, who is so cunning and even in defeat like, he's able to hold that mask really well. When he doesn't want to answer a question, he pivots. He's a good politician. And I think that part of Pius's plan was like, look, if I give you an inch, you're going to take a mile.
Right.
Like, if I say your words and suddenly they become your words instead of my speech. And papacy's already being challenged. People are like, Sister Mary's out here just saying us and we, and like, it's crazy.
Right.
So I feel like a little ego's in there, certainly, but I also feel like he's trying to play the game.
Right, and I like what you said there, because earlier in the episode, before he gives his first address, he meets with Tommaso, and Tommaso tells him, you know, they think, basically at this point, Sister Mary's the Pope. They don't even think you're speaking for yourself, you're doing things for yourself. And so we see him the next time he sees Sister Mary telling her
totally,
to shut up.
Gives her the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
It's totally rude. And here's my thing. I think Sister Mary got a bad rap. She may have thrown a couple of those wheeze in there and, you know, slap on the wrist. But because I know her heart, I felt like her intentions were totally good. And I feel like he totally threw in the He'd throw her under the bus harder than she needed to be.
I feel like Sister Mary is just like a mother. Like when I achieved, my mom's like, "We did it!" You know what I mean? Because it's your mom, and like she put so much into like building you up and making you something. Like part of this is her victory, and for him to just be like, "No, not today. You must call me your eminence." It's like, oh, bro, that's dirty to do to your mom.
Okay, Lenny. I mean, you're eminence.
Yeah, so I thought he would have had a discussion with her about that to begin with, but he just comes out and says keep quiet. And did he ask for her opinion?
He did not.
So that was interesting, but we also see him struggling to write the dress himself.
Yes.
He meets with Spencer, and we see this moment between him and Spencer where he's basically begging Spencer. He's saying, "I love you. Thank you for everything you've done. You're my mentor."
God, again with this back and forth BS. And him and Spencer, he is his daddy's son. Like Spencer's the exact same way of like, "I hate the world. Everybody's done me dirty," and then coming back around to be like, I mean, less forgive me and more of like woe is me.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
he gives the Pope the total backhand. Like he gets nothing over here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I actually think that he kind of respected that because that's really the only guy who talks. That's the only person that we've seen talk to him like that.
God for Spencer. Like when Spencer was speaking, I was like, "Are you listening, Pius? Do you hear what this man is saying?" Because as angry as he may be, like he's absolutely right. Like thank God he put him in his place.
Right.
Not the first time. Sorry, there were two conversations. The first conversation, I was like, "You are angry, sir," and it's kind of cool to see the clergy as people, portrayed as people here, and not just power hungry people, but just emotionally conflicted people.
Right.
And to see poor Spencer, like, to have to admit, like, you ruined me. Like, you took away all of my life's purpose.
Right.
But then to flip that and be like, "And you are nothing." I was like, bro, that's cold.
Yeah.
Like, he's about to go give a speech to millions. Like, he didn't have to do this. You invited him over here just to shove him out the door?
Yeah.
Rude.
Well, it's so funny that you say it's interesting to see these as people. Because one thing that I noticed in the show is that this show does a really good job of making these people seem really human, because you think of the clergy as, oh, they're so holy, they're our idols, but then we see people like we see the nuns outside playing soccer.
That was so great.
I love that.
They were going hard in the paint, too.
I know.
They were going down.
And then we see Voyello, he's on his like MacBook Pro, like watching
when the sprinklers come on.
Maradona.
Is that the scene you're talking about?
Yeah, he's on the iPad. He gets on, he's watching Maradona play soccer. And then there were so many other funny things that I saw. Like you see the guy smoking in between like puffs of oxygen.
That's just dangerous. Don't do that at home.
I know, that should not be what humans do.
He's just ride or die.
He's going to explode himself one day, and that will not be good for anybody. Like, don't do that.
But it's interesting how they break these people down as humans, because we do hold them up so high. And I say we. I was raised in the Catholic Church. I don't follow that religion anymore, but I still see them as people who are very holy. And
well, and you see it like through your grandparents' eyes. I saw it through my grandparents' eyes and through my mother's eyes. Just like, oh my God, like they're so much closer to God. All these other things, and even I think that if you hold the opposite view, if you're not Catholic or weren't raised Catholic, and maybe you hold these very heavy negative views of the church, they don't like. People aren't just pure villains. Like, I totally thought Voyello was going to go sleep with that woman. I was like, oh, scandal!
Oh, yes.
There's going to be so much drama. And then it's like, oh my God, heart. Like,
Did
he
you
does
get that?
believe in, like, religion and church. This is crazy.
Okay, the thing that got me is when he went, and Mary was following him, and he went to the little boy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. So I thought you said woman. I'm sorry.
No, because there was a
woman that came in.
That came in before him, and it appeared like he was going to like go sleep with her. But
I remember.
Instead, he's hanging with this little kid.
But I'm telling you, I took it to a whole new level once the lady walked and there's a little boy like this.
Oh no!
I was like, my mind went there. I know. I'm so foul.
Oh my God.
Catholic Church.
Please, somebody out there help out. Because I was with Joelle. I thought he was going to go sleep with this like hooker that came in behind him.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was the red herring to the little boy.
Yeah, but then we see him take this time with this,
he
kid.
feeds him. Like the very first thing he does is he's just feeding this kid, and that's beautiful. And then of course we get this other moment where he's like, "Forgive me for what I have to do," and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna go down." But it's cool that like you can't like again, if you're playing the political game, you can't confess genuinely to somebody who, because clearly gossip and secrets abound within the Vatican. Like there's no holding it. So his confessor is this boy, and I think that's so beautiful, and it made me feel like, well, this guy should be Pope. Like, immediately I was like, we've made the wrong choice. Like, that guy knows what's up. Like, he's part politician. He genuinely cares. He doesn't, like, play favorites and show his face. Like, this guy is it. And so now I'm like, oh, Pius, watch your back.
Yeah.
He's gunning for you, and I really can't wait.
Yeah, it's crazy. So are you switching sides?
Like, I could never be on Pius's side.
Okay.
Like, that level
are
of
you
insecurity,
serious?
that level of insecurity, flip-flopping, you're not ready to lead anything. Like, and I like the idea of it being the young Pope, because it feels like a lot of young king stories of, like, we don't really know what we're doing, and we want to prove a point, so war, so people know I win. Like, I really feel like that's where Pius is right now. It's like, I have to make my claim so people know I'm legitimate. He even says in episode 3, he says, I feel like nothing's happening. Dude, you're Pope. Like, you're the head of, like, one of the largest churches in the world. Like, everything has happened to you. But because it's come so easy, because he doesn't feel he's worked for it, even if maybe he has worked for it, he's not feeling that he had to put in extra effort. It doesn't feel like anything's happening to him. And because of that, because you don't understand that anything's happening to you, because you don't take your responsibility with the weight that you should, because you're still so focused on your own personal issues, I can never follow Pope Pius. I'd be like, bro, you got to make a plan. Like, you got to have some rules and some outlines and things. If you're going to leave.
So you don't think that there's a greater plan that he has in mind?
I do believe there's a greater plan. But for me, again, if you're going to hold a religious position of power like that, your plan should be for the people. And again, like they're saying here, like, you want to force your life on other people so they see the world the way you see it, and so that they live the way you do. And that's asinine. Like, there are billions of Catholics.
Right.
They all have individual needs, and for you to subject them and force them into a corner is cruel, I think. And you're forcing people away from your religion. Like, I really feel like he probably lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially with the move with all the titles, when he has Sister Mary just...
Oh my God.
Like,
Read
I'm going
off
to
all
make
this.
a statement. The first third is just titles.
Yeah.
That makes me feel instantly less connected to you.
Right.
I do think it'll be interesting to see if they do a age thing to see who does follow Pius.
Yeah.
I think the youth might like him, though. He's a very millennial Pope.
Right.
In that, even in his crass statements of, I don't need God and I absolve myself, that's a very millennial statement of, like, I did it myself. Like, I had to do everything by myself to get where I am. So it would be interesting if they explored those ideas.
I think, though, in spite of all his crassness, somehow this is going to be a journey where his crassness and his ego gets deflated, but also meets happenstance, where by some, I don't want to say lightweight miracle, but we're gonna see him accomplish something notable.
All right.
Sister Mary
I
makes
hope
me
so.
believe that too, and especially because he is kind of like a wounded child, there is definitely potential. Sister Mary is just like the heat under his sail, like she's just lifting him up.
She gets him. She gets
know.
him. She knows what he's capable of.
So it's possible that she and then Spencer say the right combination of things to set him on track. At this point, there's no way in H I would follow that guy.
Well, let's talk about his first address. Let's just get there and talk about what you guys thought of his first address.
Okay, does anyone feel like we'll just bring up another red herring. When they bring out the little boy's thing, and he has such touching things to say about, like, you tell him to look everywhere, and everywhere you feel love, that's where God is. Everything you love. And then he brought it out, and it was just a painting, and I'm like, this is going to be a beautiful speech. Like, we're going to get a touching...
I totally was on board. I thought
like,
exactly
duped
that.
again, HBO. Not today. Not today. No, today. You get, like, I'm not going to show you the way to God. Figure it out yourselves. Damn, sir. All right, I guess. I like the way the scene was shot in this, because he looked like a Marxist figure in there. Like, very staunch, all shoulders, like, black silhouetted in the audience, kind of just looking up. Not quite in the rain, but it looks cold out there. And we know they traveled a long way because we got the cute little fat boy eating, like, his sweets on the bus. And I was like, this is the most adorable thing. And everyone's, like, singing Alleluia choruses and very excited. And
Okay, is that what that was? Because I thought that was a flashback.
I thought so too, because it looked like almost in the 70s, kind of dated. But those were the people coming up.
That's
for
really
the,
interesting.
homily.
yeah, because I thought the boy was in the crowd, right?
I thought,
Yeah.
was he in the crowd?
I think so.
I just think they all looked kind of like
shoot.
70ish to me. That was like the first thing. And with the guitar.
I thought it was him as a kid, but I was like, that doesn't look like him as a kid. But then he wrote Pius on the window, and I'm like, wait, rewind. Like, did I miss something he passed, and that's why? So I'm not sure if you're out there, please confirm whether that was a dream or not, because she's seeing it as not a dream, and I totally thought it was.
No, I
My
thought
bad.
it was people
Maybe
just
it was
traveling,
just traveling
to the thing.
And they just had kind of a hippie vibe about them.
Yeah, they did. So
yeah, which you get all peace and love and happy instrumentals, and to come
Yeah.
to this, to be like, for people to come and be like, we're going to celebrate God and celebrate our new pope. It's exciting when you get a new pope. I'm not even Catholic. I get excited when there's a new pope. I'm
So
like,
do
oh my
I.
God.
I
Like,
do, yeah.
The white smoke, and then like,
Yeah.
he gives his first speech, and then what is he about? Because he is, like, people do believe, are Catholic, do believe in the pope, do follow
Right.
his teachings. Like, it's exciting to see, like, what this new world leader is going to be and what he's going to inspire. And just to be like, you need to love God more than everything else. You need to be closer to
Right.
him than anything else, but just know you'll never be as close to him as I am to him, and I can never be close to you, because it just feels like you're being abandoned, and that it's totally lonely, and it again is exactly what he had hoped for, again, because if he's trying to show what it was like when he was a kid and he felt
Right.
abandoned. I would like to point in the chat, hi Jason, I'm so sorry, your last name is a lot. Grieschober?
Oh, Jason, that's
he
my husband.
Oh, hi Jason, what's up?
What's up,
honey?
Jason?
He says whoever shined the pointer on the laser pointer on the Pope is savage. And yes, you are correct.
thanks for that hot take. It was amazing.
That is savage. Like, we want to see your face. Like, you shined a light on the Pope.
Yeah. But he wanted to be the Pope of this generation, and he
He
just
did.
went down in flames. Down in
Yeah.
flames.
So Al, what did you think of his first address?
I mean, pretty much what everybody else thought. He may have started with good intentions, and I remember he was practicing this whole thing about what we have forgotten. I didn't see that though, because he was practicing that.
You're right.
But to me, it's almost moot, because all they're gonna remember him is saying, "Don't shine that light at me. You don't deserve me. You don't get me."
He did seem kind of bananas as he was turning off. Like,
Oh, yeah,
like,
he did. He
I
was, like, angry.
At first, I was like, okay, but now I don't even know if it was just angry, but is he like disassociation?
Yeah.
Like he was just like mumbling and like I don't even know what's happening. What did I just say? What's
Yeah.
going on? Like I do worry a little bit about his like you need a therapist, Pope. Like I know that's not common, but like you should maybe see and talk to someone.
So one thing that I was talking with somebody about this first address is because it's so interesting. Like for somebody that doesn't believe in this stuff, I was like, this is interesting because he tells them like, I don't have to prove that God's real. You have to prove that God is not real. And I was like, that's interesting. And he's really putting fear into these people. So I almost wondered if he thinks like the church has kind of like lost itself, and it's lost like the fear that God used to be, like people used to fear God and fear the church, and so he's like instilling that fear in them now so that they'll become better Christians in the end. That's what I'm hoping.
We
I'm
definitely get that
like, come on.
feeling, especially as a lot of the cardinals and bishops that we see are saying like this is a very old way of thinking for
Right.
such a young guy. Like this is very strange. I am concerned that I wonder if his trajectory, and this is getting a little into predictions, but I feel like, is he going to abandon everyone? Like, will everyone be against him at the end? And it's just one guy being like, why don't you fear God? These points also feel very moot from an audience perspective, as you constantly curse God and talk about how you're not sure he exists
Right.
or believe in him. And then, again, make these dramatic flips to, like, you put him up ahead of everybody else. And, if it's not on me to prove, like, it sounds like he's talking to himself. When he said, it's not on me to prove that God exists, it's on you to prove he doesn't exist. It sounds almost like if you don't believe, that's fine, because he does exist. No one has proven that he doesn't. So
Right.
you're safe here.
Yeah.
Once we get into him being a child, I'm like, oh, God, everything makes sense now. I get it.
And he's still a child, the way he reacted.
Oh, yeah.
No, he's definitely still 9 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So then we move over after the address. So one thing that you mentioned was that we see Voyello talk to the boy, and this is at the very end of the episode. He says, "Forgive me for what I'm going to have to do." So I'm like, is he going to kill Pope Pius?
I see, and I feel like he's going to politically assassinate him, which is going to be much more delicious. Now, if we got into some murders, like, again, that's not uncommon for popes, guys.
Yeah.
That would be really dope. Not our modern popes. And that's what they say. They even mention, they talk a lot about, like, for a modern pope, you'd be the most terrifying, scary thing. But if we were going to go look at our, like, medieval popes, no, those guys were badass. They did not care.
They got
were like,
medieval on that
they were
ass.
like, if we
I
have
had
to
no
kill you,
idea.
we will. No, popes are vicious, and it's
Yeah.
dope. But I don't know. I think political assassination here. Although, it's HBO, so we might get into some murder territory.
I don't know.
Again, I think he's going to be doing big things. The young pope is going to be accomplishing big things, but I think it'll come at a huge cost
Oh, shit.
Yes.
to him and his reputation.
I agree.
What little is he's having.
So let's move to episode 3. So at the beginning of episode 3, we see Pope and Tommaso kind of like looking up at the Big Dipper, and they're talking, and
Poor Tommaso, like he is so sorry to him, but he is such a
sweet guy.
prop. He is
he
so.
is.
There's like, I need to talk to you, Tommaso. Tommaso's like, let me share some thoughts. Don't speak.
Yeah.
I have a divine like premonition coming through, and it's got to come out now. Like, I really feel bad for Tommaso.
Well, what did you think of that conversation? Because he mentions that this is a like major, it is an enormous error and a tremendous sin that they chose a pope that they didn't know. What do you think?
He's like, y'all done fucked up now. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
Yeah, I again, this is just his childishness to me, and it concerns me greatly. Because again, if it's like Kim Jong-un, like where you're like, you shouldn't have this much power. Like you don't use it correctly,
Right.
and you're hurting more people than you're helping.
Yeah, it feels like he's like purposely like punishing them for not knowing.
Well, and then he does. Like even the guy who's like, oh, I coordinate travel. You should just go. With this guy literally did like this, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but this is the first time we're seeing this guy.
So we know this guy because there was, I think there was something that was confessed, like Tommaso told him. I feel like that's how, I can't remember the exact story, but that's how he found out, because he's the same guy that he walked up to his door and he tried to unlock the thing and they pulled his,
Yes.
they pulled
Yes.
his thing off. He was fired. They hired somebody else.
Why did they fire him again?
There was, it's something that Tommaso said.
Okay.
I feel like I can't remember exactly, but I remember in the first episode something was said and he was tipped off to it. So then I think he was making it a point. This guy's like the example, and then he gets in front of that world and he says, "Close your eyes and point where you want to go next." And he's like, "Okay, San Francisco." And he's like, "Oh, it's Alaska. It's Alaska. You picked
I
Alaska."
like that
And
he
he's like,
sends
"No, I picked San
everyone he
Francisco."
hates to Alaska.
Well,
Like,
and
if he sent the Pope from the story that he was talking about, the one
Exactly.
at Harvard, he's like, yeah, I sent that guy to Alaska. Like, is Alaska just hell to you?
That's
Is that
his
where
thing.
you
Well,
just...
what he says at the end of the third episode is something about the cold. Like you have to even be able to. You have
something
to
is
be
beautiful-
able to. Yeah.
Something that's beautiful in the cold is still beautiful.
Right.
Which, again, is like, go face hardships so that you understand the beauty and, like, love around you.
Right.
Which, again, just feels like BS for a guy living in the Vatican.
Yeah.
Like, the number
Yeah.
one dude in the Vatican. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
I mean, he's beyond vindictive, and he knows it. So
Right.
he's bringing all that with him.
Right. So we see Voyello and Spencer have they have an interaction where Spencer is saying, "I, made the games that we play in the what's the word in the conclave.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened? How did he become pope?" And Voyello lies to him and says they started voting for Lenny. It was the breath of the Holy
Boyello
Spirit.
lies to literally everyone, and
Yeah.
it's magic because he does it so flawlessly.
And
It's
just
so
to
good.
clarify, okay, Viola admitted earlier that he was the one, who was basically behind getting Lenny Pope.
Right.
He
Yes.
initiated that. All right.
Yeah, but he is so good at lying. I was believing him.
I
was
have
like,
no idea
oh.
which one is true. Like, I honestly believe that he had some control over it because he's a powerful guy. He's a good politician, and I certainly believe that he does not like Spencer.
Yeah.
So maybe he was like, well, let's use Lenny. But to me, that doesn't make much sense because it doesn't appear that Lenny was ever easily controlled. So I think that maybe it did get away from him, and that if it wasn't the Holy Spirit that spoke, there was definitely something going around
Right.
in there. I don't know, because his speech to Mary, to Voyello, and then to the Cardinals, all different stories.
Right.
All sound very believable.
Right. So he tells Spencer it was the breath of the Holy Spirit, and then he tells Sister Mary something totally different. He admits he doesn't want to be pope, but he also admits that they voted him in. Is that
No,
where
he said
went
that
with
he
that?
didn't want Spencer to win
That's right, because he's fragile. Okay. So
which is clearly the case.
yes, and that's also different than what he told Spencer. So I don't know what Voyello's plan was here, but
Or if he has one.
I definitely think he
and
has
he
a
says
plan.
he has to do these drastic things to save the tree. But did you set them in action? Because then I have very different feelings about what you intend to do afterwards to
Right.
fix the situation. This definitely feels like one of those superhero scenarios where, like, you're just making it worse. You need to stop.
Yeah.
Put
Well,
the
and
count
that's
down.
kind of what happens because when all the Cardinals get together, they say we have to do something drastic.
This is hilarious to me.
Yeah, because we have to make a change here. Like all hell is breaking loose.
Voyello, resignation. And he was like, you guys are so smart. And I was like, there's no way Voyello succeeds power. Come
Yeah.
on, guys.
Yeah.
Get it together.
But then
No.
how so in that conversation, because literally like the next scene, we see the Pope again with Sophia and Voyello, and they sit down and he's like, okay, so after my first address, you must want to resign from your position. So how the hell does he know? Who told him?
I mean, he's got ears everywhere. We saw in episode 1 that Tommaso was giving him information.
Right.
And
But I don't think Tommaso was there.
Tommaso was not there, but that to me, I mean, as in Downton Abbey, there are a lot of people who just stand alone. Like, do you guys need anything? Nope.
Well,
I'm
and
just here for
somebody
when
could
you
have
do.
confessed to him. I don't know. But
Well,
yeah.
I just honestly think it's just like that. Like, when you have the lower servants, like, you just get bored standing around. You overhear everything,
Yeah.
and then there's nothing to do but clean and talk about what you just heard. Like, nothing gets kept secret in this place.
Yeah. So it was such a badass move because he's like, oh, so you want to resign. So at that point, what can he do? He can't resign. Mm-hmm. So they, basically Voyelle is saying, you've scared these people. Like, you've surprised everybody. And he's like, not surprised. You've overwhelmed everybody. And what Pius is saying is, God is overwhelming. God is fear. So Voyello wants him to have a press conference where he can go and kind of calm
Dumb.
everybody in the religion.
Let's give him a mic again.
Well, here's the thing. I think Voyello knew he wasn't going to because he's made his stance very clear that he's not going to have his photograph taken. He's not going to do those things. So Voyello really thought he was putting himself in a position and of like, don't worry, Father, I'm going to take care of it. Like, you
Right.
don't have to do anything. I'm going to set the record straight and we're going to go on. And then, of course, he uses Mary instead, which to me is smart because Mary's not going to say anything outside of the lines. Like, it's
Right.
clear, as much as she is a strong woman and has an individual voice, it's clear to me now that she's one of those mothers who was like, oh, but my baby boy.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
like all sense just goes out the window. Like,
Right.
my son, how did, like, I have to.
Yeah.
Even when we see his like, adoptive brother, I guess, his other
right.
brother in the first episode, we see how, first of all, how different those introductions are. Like,
Cardinal
don't call me
Ducier,
Sister Mary.
Ducier.
Yeah.
Is his name Andrew?
I don't remember his last
Okay.
name.
Yeah.
They're exact opposite.
They're in every way, like, call me Ma. First of all, I was like, whoa,
Yeah, I
no
noticed
way.
that too.
So it's weird that she has two sons, both of whom she calls her Jules, but one who's never allowed to call her Ma, and the one who still does it today.
Right.
Like, the rule did not change for him.
Well, didn't she say that she didn't? It's the way that she introduced herself to Lenny was different because she felt like he was independent.
And I think that's going back to her whole judge of character and having raised a bunch of kids. Okay, like, this is a kid who I need to check from the jump and need to put up, like, like
Andrew
the
was very
formality.
weepy.
Yeah,
He was
versus
very
a kid
weepy
who
for
came in crying. Okay, I need to show him, more of my heart. We're going to have more of an intimate
Does
relationship.
anyone else think it's BS that she doesn't remember anything about his parents either?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
I think
this is like a
she's
pretty
lying, right?
Oh, God, she must
Yeah.
be, because it's a very transformative day for her, too, if this is the person she also, like, you remember, also 9 years old to be randomly dropped off is a way late age.
Right.
For parents to just be like, no, we don't want this kid no more. And we have to go to Venice? Definitely seems like a lie you tell a child, like, why did my parents tell me? They had to go to Venice.
All right, and let's speculate here. Why would the parents drop him off? Not at that age, but let's speculate. Why did his parents drop him off?
Honestly, the trashy novel, like, reader in me is like, he was psycho and they couldn't deal with him, so they gave him
Yeah.
up.
He was the Omen.
Yes, exactly. Like that. The trashy novel side of me says that. The HBO watcher says it's probably something much more complicated, but also very simple. Some, like, either are they dying? Maybe they didn't drop him off. Maybe they died and he does not remember. Like, he's
Right.
blacked out the transfer. My guess is it's something traumatic like that.
I
guessing.
think it's something traumatic, but I also think it's something really twisted because in this episode we see like a weird dream sequence where he like comes out and he sees his parents. I think that's his
That's
parents.
what he said he was dreaming about.
And then when he runs to them, they like move off to the side, and when he looks, he sees two like little boys that look like altar boys, and then we see like this kid chasing a woman, and it's in Venice, and he chases her up, and then she gets on a water taxi with the dad, and I think it's his mom and dad, and they sail off. Well, they don't sail because it's not a sailboat, but they start going away, and I don't know if it's him that's yelling to them or if it's somebody else, but they're yelling to him, tell me your name, or what is your name?
Yeah.
Well, that seems to me
was
just
so confusing.
That seems to me just to be exactly. It's like it's the story he's been told, you know, and so these are the fragments that he's piecing together.
So was
know?
he in Venice?
I don't believe so. I think, honestly, it's like, well, they're in Venice. And he says that he's been looking the whole world over for them. And I think in his
is this
dream...
just a dream of
yeah,
him as
it's
a child
like, what is your
looking-
name? Like, I can't find you. Like, I don't know where you are.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No, go
if
ahead.
you notice all these flashbacks, and I hate to use the term fever dream, but all these flashbacks, they're gonna be... They're not reliable. You know,
Right.
they're so deep in his subconscious. Whatever he's saying is a mix of fact and then a mix of, you know,
What
whatever.
he's been told,
Yeah.
Right.
what he believes. Yeah,
It was so
definitely.
confusing because I was like, I didn't think that he was in Venice. So maybe you're right. Maybe he's looking for them, and that's him in Venice saying, "What is your name?" And
Yes.
I don't know. Then I don't know what he does. Go online, like Facebook, his parents. I don't know. So basically, let's get to the press conference that they have. Sister Mary, like we said, is gonna be the one that's gonna go ahead and dictate everything that the Pope has to
What
say
a
to the press.
mess.
Oh my gosh.
So first of all, to be thrust into a room like that with press where you're the sole person and you have no idea A, how to handle the press, B, how to formulate an answer so that it can be translated into multiple languages that not only makes sense but doesn't terrify people, and 3, to read it so coldly and impersonally and not be able to have any answers for any follow-up questions, again, I think just further separates the Pope from the people.
Right.
Especially when he was like, I do not have to answer to you, and unlike you, I am infallible. I was like, sir, what? Like, I know. The faith believes that this is the person closest to God, that this is God's mouthpiece on earth. Which, yes, would put you closer, but does never, to the best of my Catholic knowledge, make you infallible. And I think that, again, you're just gonna lose like, your predecessors tried so hard to bring people in, like your IRL predecessors have really been working hard to be like, come back to the church, we're pretty good, we want to help you, and for this to just be like, nah, son, I don't need any of you, go find God yourself,
Right.
And then maybe you'll see me.
But I think that's like the sociopath side of him, because in one breath where you can be saying, okay, you know, it's all about me, in the very next breath, this was in the beginning of, I remember at the beginning of this episode, he's down on his knees.
Oh, yeah.
God, forgive me. I need to hear from you. I can't do this without you. I'll have my brother forgive me for what I did this and I did that, which was the total opposite of what he said like 5 minutes before.
But you know what? I'm actually glad you said that, because that just like hit a light bulb in my brain. But like, I wonder if when he's down on the ground praying like that, he's like, God, come to me because I don't believe in you. And at the same time, it goes back to the Kanye West song. Like, what is a God if you don't believe in him? Like, I guess if you don't believe, then you can be God. Because what's a God to somebody who doesn't believe?
And which is the biggest sin, to think you're God. That's what Satan thought. That's why Lucifer fell. He thought he was God, or he wanted to be like God.
Well, through the whole second episode, we keep coming across the same question of, like, where is God? And not so much who is he or do we believe, but just where do we find God? And the answer for Pope Pius seems to be in himself, which I think is it's fascinating because a lot of religious teachings are like, God is within you. You're made in God's own image. And what's really cool about this story is it seems to deal a lot with the conflicting stories of that you're fed as a religious child, essentially.
Right.
Like, you should model yourself after God. You should humble yourself before God. God is within you. God is everywhere. God hates everyone, and he is like, but he's all loving, but also he's a jealous God. God is not infallible according to Old Testament. Like, it's a lot of contradictory statements to try to hold within yourself, especially if that is the pillar upon which you lean your life.
Right.
So it's cool to see those things again reenacted in a very human sense, not in a what are those terrible religious movies where they're like all over the world searching for the things?
The Da Vinci Code?
Yes, those are terrible. And I really feel like you don't to me, like, I'm not a religious person, but I find people who have faith in religion so beautiful. Like, if you watch somebody who prays, who's really devout and truly believes, like, that connectivity and that spirituality is so beautiful to watch. And so it's kind of interesting to see somebody who I think I would loathe as a human being if I met them in person struggle to fit within this thing that I think has the potential for a lot of beauty. And I think the show balances those out really well.
Right. Well, let's get to the storyline of Esta. Is it Esta or Esther?
I thought it was Esther, yeah.
Esther. Sorry, I was calling her Esta, like slang word for
That's some
Esther.
other movie.
So Esther is like a mystery because we see her at the beginning of, I think, was it the second episode where she's sleeping with the guard? I don't know
her husband.
Sam
Peter?
Is she married? I didn't know that was supposed to be her husband.
They say in the thing that she's the wife of a Swiss guard. So that is the crazy uniforms who guard the palace.
So
meanwhile, she's having all these fantasies about the young pope, right?
Well, yeah, and she's standing outside of St. Peter's Basilica, and she's just standing there at night by herself, kind of dressed in like a light color. So he sees her, and he calls for her, and the guy that goes to pick her up also like comes on to her and is like, "Are you thinking of me?"
Not just comes on to her, but it's clear they've had a sexual past.
Oh, for sure.
And he's just grabbing her tits, like, let's do it now. And the Pope's watching, and I'm like, this is all very scandalous.
Now we're talking. Aren't we talking about Sophia? Or are we still talking about Esther?
Okay. So it's Esther, So then Esther comes up, and because the Pope wants to see her, she's all excited, and she goes in, she's like, I loved your dress. And he's like, it's not enough to love it, you have to perceive it. And she's like, I think I perceived it. And he turns around, and then I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Is that a trust fall? Like
I really thought that's what was happening too. I was like, what kind of game is this?
I'm like, maybe he trust falls people before he like sleeps with them. He's like, oh, that's a trustworthy person, she caught me. But like, no, he like passes out. Or fakes passes out. I don't know, he trust falls into her, and it's not really a trust fall.
It's a mess, is what it is.
I don't know what the hell happened, but then she's like on the ground, like stunned, like, what the hell happened?
The Holy Father is literally in my arms. Like, I don't know how to. You can't dump him on the floor. Like,
and
that's
also,
not procedure.
Like, didn't you get hurt? Like, I feel like I would have like torn my ACL, like falling to the ground. Like, if somebody like fell their dead like body weight on me.
You just collapsed.
And she's just like sitting there. She's just like, I don't know what happened.
I think because he's like, this is how much you have to love me and worship me. That's what I got out of that whole scene.
Well, she caught his ass, so, so she does. So that was interesting, and I'm not really sure where we're going with that. And like nothing is said of it. Like he's up the next day and he's fine. Nothing more about that. And then we have another interaction, which I thought was really funny between the Pope, Voyello, and Sophia. I love those three together. I think they're so funny, and it's becoming like even more funny of an interaction because Sophia's like feeding off him and she's laughing with him, and
Sophia's infatuation makes me uncomfortable. Like I'm sure everybody has, but you've just been infatuated, like that level of infatuated with a person where you just like lose cognitive functions briefly.
Jude Law in The Holiday, yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but
sorry.
But
Speak on it.
It's just so it makes you uncomfortable. It's like Issa Rae is Insecure. Like watching that show made me so uncomfortable. I'm like, stop showing my life in such like perfect detail. It's very weird. And watching her just be like, oh my god. I'm like, girl, get your senses together.
Yeah.
Like, this is not going to work. He's the Pope who literally can't marry you. Like, there's just nothing he can do. Like, move forward. It just makes me uneasy.
I mean, it just goes to show. I mean, I think they're going to push that line. They're going to push it as far as they can.
I think they are for sure, too. Well, one thing that I forgot to mention, I believe it was in the second episode, was they were all trying to, Voyello is talking with this guy who's kind of like undercover for him and kind of spying on the Pope. He asks, what did you find on him? And he said, I can't find anything. And he said, well, like, what's his sexual orientation? And he's like, I don't think he has one. All he cares about the church. And then he says something really interesting, which I find not to be true, but he says, well, the church is female.
The church is a woman, I know.
How is the church female? Because there's like, especially in the Catholic Church, it's all about men. And like, I was just like, what do you mean the church is female?
The church is your wife. It's what I gathered from it. The church is his lover. It is his girlfriend. The church is the thing that seduces him. And I think they were hoping to use that as a tool.
So I thought they were literally saying it's female and he is interested in females, because then they try to get around by getting details from the guy who he starts becoming like telling his secrets to. What the heck is his Cardinal Gutierrez?
Cardinal Gutierrez is everything to me, and I also feel like
him.
that guy should be Pope.
Yeah.
That guy cares only about the church. But they use hyperbole a lot throughout the series, and they talk about that. He's like, we're gonna do hyperbole in reverse, and that's how we'll get people to be attracted. And he uses it in his when he's talking on the thing and looking at the stars. He says that. I had to glue myself to the seat. So I'm like, that's for sure hyperbole, bro. I'm sure you didn't take the time to glue yourself to the seat so you wouldn't make a mess so you could continue to pray. None of that makes sense. But I feel like a lot of the speeches, a lot of the things are more poetry and hyperbole than actual fact and statement.
Yeah, no, they take it to the point of absurdity, which a good satire will do.
Yeah, so we see this interaction with Gutierrez, and he's telling him a story about how the only time that he's really been alone, that he went off on his own, was when he took a trip to California, and he went to the beach and he met a girl there for 1 week, and then the next day he joined, what is the word? He joined the
priesthood?
Yeah, it's
Something,
like, I don't know what
the
it's
actual
called.
name,
Yeah,
but
but
yes.
he joins to become a priest.
Yes.
Because Gutierrez was telling him how he had this life-changing moment in, I think it's in episode 1, where he was in St. Peter's Basilica with his parents, and he realized at that moment, like, that he was going to become a priest. So what ends up happening with Gutierrez is Voyello comes in. His guy must have been spying on him or something, and he knows that Voyello knows that Gutierrez knows this story about the Pope and this girl. So he shows up in his room. So Gutierrez gets back, and Voyello's sitting on his bed with a bottle of gin. And he's like, well, I could tell the Pope about your drinking habit. And he's like, 1 bottle of gin doesn't make me an alcoholic. And he's like, he pulls out from under the bed a whole thing, and he's like, well, all these bottles do. So he's basically blackmailing him and saying, like, tell me the story. And then we see at the end, Gutierrez goes back to the Pope and says, he asks him a further question about the girl. And I can't recall what exactly it was, but he asks him a more detailed question, and you kind of get the feeling that that's Voyello. Voyello wants to know more, and he knows Gutierrez will get it. So it was interesting. One thing that I do want to mention, I know we don't have much time left, is some of the symbolism in there. There's 2 things that I kind of understood and one I didn't. So the first was the kangaroo.
The kangaroo is amazing.
The creepy kangaroo.
The kangaroo to me is about divinity, about being touched and about being connected to God's creatures and things like everyone else. The kangaroos are terrifying in real life.
Yeah.
Like, they're tall, they can kick you in the chest and kill you. Much like swans can just flap their arms or their wings and break your arms. It's confusing. Like, the animals should not be able to do these things. It's just like the cute ones. I don't understand it. But I think his ability to just open the cage, for the kangaroo to be gentle, and then for him to be comfortable enough to let the kangaroo just roam free in the Vatican garden.
Yeah.
Which
And he
is
totally
amazing.
charmed him too, like another one of his miracles.
Yeah.
Yes,
Got you. Yeah.
Cute out
So
here.
what did you
Okay.
think of the kangaroo owl? Because the kangaroo just kept popping up, so I'm just like, what does it mean?
I don't know. It's right up there with the owls that are hitting all around the Vatican. You see the all watching owls all the time. So
actually,
someone
I didn't
is
even think about that. That's
yeah.
a good
Well,
point.
just the fact that like someone's always watching, i.e., God is always watching, no matter what you say or you do. And I think the kangaroo is gonna pop up in that type of context.
So I was like dying because I'm like, what the hell is the kangaroo doing? Because the kangaroo comes out, whatever, it's a miracle, and then he's like, no, it was just chance, and I would attribute it to chance myself because I don't believe in this stuff. But then we see it like in the garden, and we see it here and there, and I'm just like, why does it keep popping up? So I googled like what a kangaroo means, and apparently like it symbolizes family and like because like they have to do with family. So I was wondering if it was something about his mom and dad, and he's seeing it as something, or it's popping up to remind him of, I don't know, family or his parents.
It's definitely I think it's definitely gonna be symbolic of something in his past.
It means
Interesting.
something. The kangaroo means something.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think it's interesting that they called the girl's name is Esther too. If you know your biblical stuff at all, Esther was okay. So Esther's a Jewish queen essentially. She was born an orphan, and Jews were exiled. They were allowed to come back to the land, but there was still plots against the Jews. They're trying to kick them all out. So Esther marries a king, and the king has to basically invite her. He has to call on her, and she's like, "There's definitely a plot to destroy my people. There's definitely a plot to destroy my people. Can't tell the king yet. Can't tell the king." She has to charm him over 3
this
days.
Seems like what's happening.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! See, she knows her stuff. The last thing that I have to mention, I know we don't have much time, but the safety pin. What the hell was the safety pin about?
You have to. Okay, so for that, here's an old man bestowing his wisdom and his years in the church, his knowledge to the young pope, right? And he says, "Look, this thing, which is simple, so just a giant paper. Wait, what is it called?
Safety pin.
Safety pin. Thank you. It's just a giant safety pin." But he's like, "But if you open it, it's useful. You can hang things on it. You can keep your robes closed, like whatever. There are possibilities here, but you have to be open to them." And he's like, "It's still pretty useful clothes. You know, put it on as a bracelet." Like, to completely missing the point entirely. And I'm trying to remember the piece of advice the older cardinal gave him right as he left. When oh man. Do you guys remember what he said afterwards?
I can't remember. That's why I
They
must
were
admit,
really wise words. I have to go back and listen to them. But yeah, that's all I think that was. It's
Okay.
like, look,
So it
you
didn't
don't
mean
have to
anything
be.
further.
Oh no, he tells him like you can't. You're asked a baseless question. Like this question doesn't do anything for anybody except scare them. Like you didn't invite anyone in. You closed everybody out. And I just feel like Pius would do well to listen to his elders around him.
All right, we literally have a few minutes left. So do we want to go into any like Pope facts? Do we think we can do it this quick, or do we want to?
Yeah, I can do a Pope fact. I'll tell you.
We're gonna do a Pope fact.
Okay, cool. So you guys want to check out Pope Stephen the IV, sometimes called the third, sometimes called the fifth. We're gonna call him the fourth. This guy was bananas, y'all, and he's one of my favorite historical popes. This guy exhumed the body of the pope that was before him and put him on trial. Hired an archbishop to speak for the Pope, and they literally put him on trial for past crimes.
Wait, like he was dead?
His exhumed, dead, rotting corpse.
So he's just like dead, like sitting at
There's
court
a great
like this.
painting.
Like guilty.
And like you're speaking for him.
Jean-Paul Lorenz, in 1870, painted this beautiful portrait of it, and it's so grotesque and awful, but also really great. And this is a time of heavy contention, because at this time you have the great Italian families controlling the papacy. So as much as, like, they're not their own independent state yet, so the families come in there and, like, do their whispers and stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty much the craziest thing that he did. The corpse was found guilty, stripped of its sacred vestments, deprived of 3 fingers on its right hand, clad in garb of layman, and quickly buried. It was then re-exhumed and thrown in the Tiber. All ornaments performed by Formus were annulled.
That's so sacrilegious.
This
The irony
is
of it.
crazy.
The craziest thing is that Stephen himself was then either strangled or poisoned. It's a little confusing to figure out what happened, but he was murdered too, because people were like, that fool crazy, and we can't. There's seriously, guys, I will try to find the book for you guys, because it's amazing. But there's a book an artist did where he drew pictures of different popes and the crimes they've committed throughout the centuries.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it is fascinating.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Pope Stephen IV, check him out.
yes. We want to do predictions?
Yeah, we do 30-second
All right,
predictions.
30-second predictions,
AfterBuzz
guys. We are
TV
really putting a lot in this
predictions.
episode. Any
Yes.
predictions that you guys have?
I actually want to use my time to shout out the filmmaker, which I did get a chance to last week.
Okay.
Paolo Sorrentino, only because he's writing and directing every episode, and like that's
amazing.
major.
Yeah, it's so
So I
amazing.
really like this whole idea of the television creators as auteur. Like Sam Ismail's the only guy I know that for Mr. Robot, who like wrote all the episodes.
Oh, they did the same thing in The Nick.
Oh, okay.
All
So
directed
you're
by the same
predicting
person.
that
Yeah.
he's going to write and direct the next episode.
He's gonna do the rest of the
I
season.
think he might be right, guys. So
love it.
we'll see. Okay, what's your prediction, Joelle?
I think we're going to dive more into Pius's boyhood, and hopefully into what Mary knows. Like, the show I keep waiting for sinister, terrible things to happen, because it's a Catholic Church and that's the stories that popular media has been feeding us for a while. But we keep not going in that direction, so
Right.
it leaves me a little confused. So I'm hoping maybe we get a little bit of it next week. I'm excited. I want to see
Yes.
Mary be a little bit vicious and a little cruel, and maybe be holding back
I like
a little
that.
bit. Yeah.
All right. Well, we will have to wait till next week to see. So thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching our video. Make sure you comment on our video. We'll write back to you. Like the video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And join us next week in the chat. We will talk to you live. So until next time, you guys can find me. I'm Jessie Zahner. You can find me on all social media at Athletic, and tell everybody where they can find you guys.
Hey guys, I'm Joelle Monique. You can find me all over the internet at Joelle Monique and every week at blackgirlnerds.com. Please check out my new show, The Chocolate Shop, which is going to be airing right after the new Riverdale series. Then come back here and watch me do Riverdale the after show here. Tonight I'll be on Gotham and Incorporated for season finale. Holy cow. So definitely go check that out.
Hey guys, I'm Gragg. Check out my new show, The Path. The after show is going to air on Wednesday, and it features two of my favorite actors, Aaron Hall from Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Did I get the last name right? And and Michelle Monaghan, she was in True Detective.
Yes.
So if you like that whole Breaking Bad, True Detective world, they're all involved in this cult. Check it out on Wednesday, and it streams on Hulu.
Awesome, and we'll see you guys next week.
Aaron Paul, that was the name. Aaron
So
Paul.
close.
See
I'm just
ya.
going to wave goodbye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.